They often say that plagiarism is the best form of flattery. And the TrimUI Smart Pro came out last year. I said if the price comes down a little bit and we get some custom firmware, this thing is going to be amazing. Well, by the end of the year last year, the TrimUI Smart Pro became one of my top contenders for handheld of the year. Between its build quality and its community support, this handheld just continues to get better all the time, even today. And now comes along the M22 Pro from SJGAM, a very like-for-like clone, all the way down to the operating system that comes on the device. This doesn't yet have the custom firmware or community support, though that may be around the corner, because this actually has some things that the TrimUI Smart Pro doesn't have. What's going on today, Internet? Selfish here with Retrospect. Today we're going to find out the differences between the M22 Pro and see if it's the right option at a lesser price, or if you should stick with the TrimUI Smart Pro. Let's take a look. This is an awkwardly sized box for a handheld of this size, but you know, it is what it is. So we do have our M22 Pro box here, and SJGAM does do a pretty good job of plastering their name, plus some good images, mostly on their boxes. Sometimes they do put their specs on here, which they did, but then they put a sticker over it, because I don't think they're ever right. I've never actually taken the sticker off, but the one time I had one without a sticker, the specs were changed, we'll say, after production of the box. But just a pretty average box. I guess maybe above average for being a budget handheld, but it does look nice. Inside of our box here, we do have our M22 Pro. We're going to set that off to the side. Oh, it's got that plastic again. Man, 2 handhelds in a row. I hadn't seen that stuff in over a year. Now we got 2 in a row with that plastic. See what else we got in here. It does come with an HDMI cable for the video out. There is video out on here. We do have an origami accordion with instructions on it, which is really nice to have. This is looking pretty good in case we need to come back to this at all. If what's on the box is what's in here, then what's on the box will be correct because the features are correct in there. This also comes with a Type C to Type A cable. It is the white one, so don't know what the voltage is on that. And then it also comes with one of these crappy controllers that look like an old PlayStation controller that are just super light. They don't have any weight to them, but they do the job. They do work decent, which I think is why companies continue to use them. They do have an on-off switch down here. They do require 2 AAA batteries. There's no dongle for this. That's kind of weird. Usually there's dongles, so it must be already pre-programmed into the M22 itself. I guess that would be pretty nice, but this way you can play 2-player, and this does come with everything to put it on a screen, so you wouldn't be playing 2-player over that tiny screen. You'd be able to hook it directly into the TV if you wanted to sit about 18 inches from your TV or so. We'll move all this stuff out of the way. All right, let's take a look. This is the SJGAM M22. Looks very, very similar to a handheld that we're very comfortable with, which is the TrimUI Smart Pro. One of my favorite handhelds of all time. I've made multiple videos on it. This one does have some differences, which we will talk about here. Too bad it didn't come with a screen cover, but you know what? We're gonna see how this sounds. It was satisfying to pull, but not very satisfying to hear. It is a pretty nice little handheld we have here. We'll get the other stuff out of the way, and then I'll go through the I/O here real quick. I guess that plastic insert makes a little bit more sense when you understand that there is a controller in the box, also why the box was so big. We'll go through the I/O here on the M22 Pro. We'll start at the top. Like we always do, we have our shoulder buttons and our triggers. They feel better than the first version of the TrimUI Smart Pro before they fixed them. But we do have an on-off switch, which is nice. Instead of just a button, we do have a full switch. We do have a memory card slot right here, and then an HDMI out right here. Our volume up and down are also on the top. On the back here, we don't really have anything except for telling us what the battery is. On the right and left side, there is nothing on the right or left side. And on the bottom down here, we do have our charger for Type C. We do have our speaker holes, and we do have a 3.5 hole for headphones. On the front here, we do have our face buttons, which do feel nice. They have a decent amount of spring. Let's see if we can get it on here for you. They bounce back pretty good. A little bit small for how much space they have, but you know what? They feel pretty good. You can tell the difference between them when you put your thumb on there, so it's not the worst. We do have inset Vita style sticks, and these do not click on this particular device, so they're straight up Vita sticks that are in here. We do have start and select, both on micro switches, and then we do have our D-pad, which feels membrane. Might be dome, but it feels definitely membrane. It does have a central pivot to it, so it's going to do all right, I think. It's not the world's biggest D-pad, but I think it'll work. Sweet. Right off the bat holding this, it is very comfortable. It does have these bumps here on the back, these ergonomic bumps I wish the TrimUI Smart Pro had. It might take away from that premium feeling a little bit, but it does make the device better to hold in the hands for longer periods of time for sure. But you just feel like you have a better grip on it with these bumps on the back. And I think ergonomics are important on a lot of handhelds these days. I think it's not something that was really thought much of before, but it is something that is beneficial. Before we get too far into that stuff though, let's go through this I/O because it is very, very limited compared to the TrimUI Smart Pro, but it does look similar in a lot of ways. Obviously, our icons are the same. Also, you can go to single row icons like you can on the TrimUI Smart Pro. You do have a favorites area, you do have a history, you have a games area, which is this here, and it'll go through all the different systems that are on here. This has up to PS1 on it. I tried loading Dreamcast, PSP on here just for kicks and giggles, and it never showed up. So I do not believe it can play those systems. It's not programmed to do so, but I thought I'd give it a shot, and it just didn't come up on here. I think that's every NES game. 1657, isn't that every game? It's pretty close. One thing I did notice when you go into these game menus is they're often not in order. They're in a numerical order. They are not in the correct order, and also the games are misnamed, so like Super Plumber, and then you see there's no box art. So a lot of this isn't scraped, just in general, but this probably isn't scraped because it has the wrong name, because I'm pretty sure Super Mario Brothers 3 is not called Super Plumber 3 anywhere. Super Plumber Brothers Invincible Edition, but that'll give you an idea. So, and they are running off of a number scheme. So they're in numerical order, but the numerical order is not in alphabetical order. Some seem like they are, and then you will continue on and you'll realize they're not. Just like we started with S. It's just what it is. And it's in like this on every system. I was a little bummed that PSP didn't get on here, as well as Dreamcast. I assumed Dreamcast was going to be able to play on the CPU, but they do not have it set up for that. When we go into settings, we're pretty limited. We can change the backlight setting, we can change the volume, and we can change the system settings, which the only options we have here are going to be our language model. The LEDs on the outside here, we can turn off these LEDs around here. We can't actually change what they do. They're always going to be the rainbow wheel, and that's it. When you're in a game, you can use like start select, stuff like that in order to get through to navigate. And we will kind of look at that here real quick. So we're going to just jump into an SNES game here. We're going to see if Yoshi's Island is on here. If you want to get into your menus to make any changes, just start select, and this is what you get. You actually cannot get into RetroArch. So you are completely locked down on this front end. Hopefully somebody at least gets a hold of this so we can open up RetroArch, because I think that would give this handheld a lot of legs to get it past where it's at right now. Because right now you are very limited. Now, this is a very comfortable handheld and things like that, but you're limited by what the handheld gives you right now. And that's a similar conversation I had about the TrimUI Smart Pro when it came out. The difference being is that one wasn't nearly as locked down as this is. Well, hit the first one. Wow, this guy's good. What is happening here? What? I hit the first one, I haven't hit one since. Well, that's about how I normally play. That makes sense. So I think what we're going to do here, I'm just kind of curious now. So then we can exit our game, save it, or load. Obviously, we're not saving that game. But I was kind of curious about this because I've seen this in EmuElec before. Our history is not recording. So I'd put a couple of games in favorites while I was getting ready to record and realized that they never showed up in the history when I was going through there. So that's a thing. I guess I don't really rely on history at all, but some people probably do, especially if you don't know what the name of the game is, to be able to go back and play it. That's unfortunate. But what I think we're going to do is we're going to go through and test a couple games out here, and then I'll give you a conclusion here at the end. So for the price, I think that this is actually doing better than I thought it would, and the comfort is amazing. So I've played this a lot now. I've played it now I'm coming back into this video about a week now. Playability is really good on this handheld, but you are limited on what you can play. So you are kind of traditional retro handheld up to PS1, right? I tried to put Sega Saturn, Dreamcast, and PSP on here. None of those systems worked, unfortunately. I was really kind of hoping I would get a little bit of playability out of some of those, but they're just not here. Now, they're not in the file structure either, so I did have to add my own files, so either I could have spelled something wrong, which I don't think I did for all three, or because they weren't in the original file structure, it's not looking for them anyways. But traditionally, you should be able to add to this file structure because it is a traditional EmuElec file structure, and that would have those systems in it. So it is kind of a downfall of it, but all in, for how cheap this is, it plays very well. This 5-inch screen looks good. If you don't have the money to get a TrimUI Smart Pro, or you're just getting into this hobby and want to see what it really is like, am I going to use the device, this is going to be a good handheld to start with, especially if you're looking for a horizontal. Pricing on these goes for around the same as an R R36S, which is a very popular vertical handheld. You're not going to get the customization with this that you do with the R36S. The R36S is also a clone handheld, so some of these clones do very well. This has the opportunity for somebody to come in and do some custom firmware, and I would be surprised if somebody didn't, because this company started off with the M17 about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and even that got custom firmware, and we've seen handhelds throughout the last year of theirs get custom firmware. Almost all their handhelds are a clone of something. This is the best they've done. Even tried cloning the Anbernic 405V, which is a bigger vertical handheld. They came up with their own version, which oddly enough had a 16 by 9 inch screen, so they know what they're doing. Some of their handhelds land really well, and some of them suck. I'd say this one did pretty well in my experience with it. Now, it's kind of limited. I've only been playing with it for about a week now. It hasn't made me like want to go back to my TrimUI Smart Pro so much. I am missing a few things. I don't have my port master on here. With CrossMix, you just get a lot more. You know, you get port master, you get things like that. A little bit more customization over here where you don't get that so much with the M22, but it's a solid handheld. Now, I would tell you if you had to choose between the two of them, stick with the TrimUI Smart Pro. This thing has stood the test of time. It is a solid built handheld. We'll check out the weight difference between the two. So we'll start off here with the M22. Coming in at 210 grams. That's actually pretty light. Even some smaller handhelds than this come in right around there. And then we have the TrimUI Smart Pro coming in at 270 grams. So you're 60 grams heavier. If you're gonna throw something like this in your pocket, you might be better off getting something like this. The only difference is gonna be, though it's lighter for your pocket, it also is fatter. And I mean, it's considerably fatter just because of the ergonomic bump on the back. I like the bump. I actually have a hand grip for my TrimUI Smart Pro if I'm gonna be playing for like long travel sessions in the car. Some other interesting things here. We do have an HDMI out that works. The TrimUI Smart Pro wanted to put an HDMI cable in, I believe, which is what I believe this plug is for on the bottom, but it was never put into the device. And then instead of having a host out on here to be used for your controllers like the TrimUI Smart Pro does, this one comes with a wireless controller, which is kind of a good bonus. If you think about the price, you get an HDMI cable, an extra controller. I mean, this thing is a pretty good value, honestly, especially for somebody if you're just getting into this, or if you want to get something for your kids. If you don't know if they're going to like retro games, because some kids love retro games and some kids absolutely don't want anything to do with them. A little trick though is find some games you can play together, and this might be a good handheld for that. Maybe you played Ninja Turtles or something. That's what I did with my son, get him into kind of the retro gaming stuff. Just some parenting advice. And if you're a kid that's watching this and your mom or dad wants to play retro games with you, play with them, because they're trying to find some way to connect with you and show you something that they grew up with. I'm just full of wisdom today. So the SJGAM M22 comes off as a solid budget option in my book, and I've seen them on sale a few different times. There'll be links to that and the other things I talked about here today down on my thingamabob, so that you can make some decisions if you are getting into the market. But that's all I got for today. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, share this video with your friends, because sharing is caring. It also helps grow the channel, and I do appreciate it. I really do appreciate all of you guys. There are a couple videos up here on the top too that YouTube thinks you're going to like. I don't know what they are, but they chose them for you based off the algorithm, and we all know YouTube works off of an algorithm, so I would check one or both of those out and do the same thing at the end of those videos. But that's all I got for today. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye!